This man suddenly pulled off his earring and drops the liquid from it onto the vines. The vine instantly dehydrates and turns into a cane. Then he carried the vine and tried to extract the last drop of the world's century soup by squeezing it. As John pulled on the cane, the ancient stone, which had been sleeping for tens of thousands of years, gradually coalesced and contracted. Then John yanked the cane so hard that the ice pick shattered. Colorful rays of light poured into the sky. The last drop of the century's soup appeared in the world. But who will it choose as its master? Everyone waited with bated breath to see who it would choose. It was David. The gumbo of the century chose David. Its smell wafts out gently. It's like a seductive messenger that makes Jack and Madge lose control. They tried to steal the precious gumbo of the century, but John was quick to stop them. He said that David was the only chef here. He was the only one who could reproduce the soup of the century. But to their surprise, Jack refused, seeing the mistrust of his teammates. David sadly vowed that he would make the real gumbo of the century so that everyone could have their fill. Then David took a sip of the gumbo of the century. He suddenly fell to the ground. The crowd is shocked. Is it possible that century gumbo is poisonous? They rushed to help David up. There are no words to describe the taste. Even just thinking about it for a moment brings back the look of happiness. This scene made Jack look forward to it. After the taste of the gumbo of the century, David immediately devoted himself to the great cause of reproducing the gumbo of the century. They collected a lot of strange ingredients and made different combinations of them, but after trying over and over again, the flavor was still far from perfect. Even the color of the soup was not transparent. David had no choice but to bring his creation to Granny Setsuna for advice. He couldn't figure out why his soup tasted so bad, but Granny Setsuna told David she had been trying to recreate the soup for 30 years, but it's still a little bit short of the real soup. It's not your cooking skills that are lacking, it's your heart for the ingredients. Hearing her words, David seemed to understand something. He immediately went back to the room and listened to the ingredients. This time, it was as if he had established some kind of connection with the ingredients. There were pelicans running to the pot asking to be stewed. There were cabbages waiting to be chosen. The ingredients were actually asking to be cooked by him. The ingredients are added to the pot and brought to a simmer, and then the broth is strained through the layers. A clear, transparent bowl of gumbo was born. David took a taste. It was delicious, but it was still a little short of the real gumbo of the century. What was the missing flavor? While David was worried, a greedy little penguin was attracted to the soup. The flavor of the soup was so delicious that the penguin couldn't help drooling. The saliva fell into the bowl. In an instant, the bowl emitted a 7-colored light. David looked at the scene with disbelief. He actually succeeded. He took a sip of the century gumbo. That's right. This is the taste. It turns out that these penguins who have been living in the origin of the gumbo for a long time contain the precious ingredients of the gumbo in their bodies. Their saliva is like bird's nest. It's an extremely precious ingredient. The news of David's success in reproducing the gumbo of the century is spreading all over the world. All the major media came to report on it. Even Parker, one of the top 7 gourmets within IGO, was there in person. It was the first time for the hotel owner to see such a big figure. The owner rushed to David's side and asked him to make a bowl of soup for this lord at once. If we make him happy, our hotel will be famous. But David refused without hesitation, because the first bowl of soup had to be for that man. When Parker heard that, he was not happy. Can anyone be more honorable than us? At that moment, a loud noise came from outside the door. That man is here. Although Parker was not happy, he could only give in. David then threw a feast and invited his companions to share in it. As they sat around the table, they lifted the lid. The room was filled with aurora borealis. The bowl was completely transparent, as if there was no soup at all, but the rich flavor was intoxicating. Jack took a spoonful of the soup and put it in his mouth. In an instant, he was in a wonderland of flavors. It was as if all the flavors of the world were flowing through his body. This soup is simply not a product of this world. So good that the corners of one's eyes involuntarily drooped and the corners of one's mouth involuntarily rose, until the appearance of the most obscene expression. In this way, everyone who had tasted the soup of the century showed an expression of unspeakable satisfaction. They seemed to have found the true meaning of life. After tasting it, Jack declared on the spot that he was going to add century gumbo to his life